The Grand Hall of the Galactic Federation sparkled under the light of 3 artificial suns. Hundreds of alien species filled the massive space, their varied forms creating a living rainbow of colors and shapes. It was humanity's first day as members of the Federation, and Earth's delegation stood nervously near the center platform. Ambassador Chen smoothed down his formal jacket and glanced at the wooden bow displayed prominently on the stand before them. The year 2157 was supposed to be Earth's proudest moment, but he could already hear the whispers and strange clicking sounds that passed for laughter among some species. Are they really bringing sticks and string to a plasma fight? A tall, purple-skinned Kraxthor warrior said loudly to his companions. His metallic armor gleamed as he pointed at the recurved bow. The group of Kraxthor warriors, each standing nearly 8 feet tall, moved closer to examine the weapon. The lead warrior, Commander Zaxel, picked up the bow with his 3-fingered hand. His helmet displayed scanning information across its surface as he turned the weapon over. Fascinating. They've managed to join the Galactic Federation while still being in their technological infancy. More aliens gathered around, their advanced combat suits and energy weapons creating a stark contrast to the simple elegance of the wooden bow. A holographic display next to the weapon showed videos of Earth's Olympic archers and hunting traditions. "Observe," Zaxel said, activating his armor's targeting system. A web of laser lights danced across the hall. "Our basic training armor can calculate 10,000 variables in a microsecond. Wind speed, gravity, air pressure, all automatically adjusted for perfect accuracy." He gestured at the bow. This requires the user to do all calculations in their primitive brains." The Earth delegation maintained their diplomatic smiles, but Ambassador Chen's daughter, Sarah, felt her face growing hot. She had spent 20 years mastering the bow, and these aliens were treating it like a child's toy. Perhaps, a small, floating alien suggested, its translucent body pulsing with light. "They keep these artifacts for cultural purposes. Surely they don't intend to actually use them." Ambassador Chen cleared his throat. "Actually, we're quite proud to announce Earth's participation in the upcoming Galactic Combat Tournament. We'll be demonstrating the true capabilities of our archery traditions." The hall fell silent for 3 seconds before erupting in sounds of amusement. The Kraxthor warriors were the loudest, their metallic armor rattling as they shook with laughter. "You can't be serious." Zaxel's translator crackled as he spoke between bouts of laughter. "The tournament is meant for testing the most advanced weapons in the galaxy. Last year's winner used a quantum phase disruptor." He pointed at the bow again. "This wouldn't even make it past the qualification rounds." Sarah stepped forward, her training as an archer showing in her balanced stance. "You might be surprised, Commander. Not everything that's old is obsolete." "Charming," Zaxel said, his helmet displaying a patronizing emoji. "Tell me, tiny human, can your string shooter penetrate particle shields? Can it adjust for zero-gravity environments? Can it track moving targets at light speed?" "No," Sarah admitted, then smiled. "But it also doesn't need batteries, doesn't fail during electromagnetic storms, and never needs a targeting computer to find its mark." The Kraxthor commander handed the bow back with exaggerated care, as if afraid it might break. "Well, we look forward to your performance at the tournament. It should provide some entertainment before the real competition begins." As the aliens moved away, still chuckling and sharing amused glances, Sarah picked up the bow. Her fingers ran along its smooth surface, feeling the power hidden in its simple design. Let them laugh, she thought. They'd learn soon enough that humanity's oldest weapons still had a few surprises left. Sarah Chen sat cross-legged in her personal training room aboard the Earth space station, her eyes closed in deep concentration. The room was completely dark, except for tiny dots of light that mimicked distant stars. A soft beeping from her wrist device broke the silence. Gravity disabling in 3, 2, 1. Her body lifted gently off the floor as the artificial gravity switched off. Without opening her eyes, Sarah reached for her bow. Not the traditional wooden one from the ceremony, but her special carbon fiber competition bow. This weapon was her secret advantage, developed over 5 years of working with Earth's top scientists. "You're getting better at this," Dr. Rodriguez said from the observation room. The scientist had helped Sarah modify her equipment for space combat. "Most people still get sick when we turn off gravity." Sarah opened her eyes and smiled. "Try spending 8 hours a day for 5 years floating around with a bow. You get used to it." She pulled an arrow from her quiver, another special design. These arrows looked simple but contained cores made of experimental carbon nanotech materials. The training room's walls suddenly lit up with moving holographic targets. Sarah's body twisted gracefully in the zero-gravity environment, sending arrows flying with deadly accuracy. Each arrow stuck perfectly in the center of its target, despite the changing gravitational fields and moving targets. "Show off," a friendly voice called from the doorway. Captain James Wong, Earth's military liaison to the Galactic Federation, floated into the room. "But you'll need more than fancy shooting to survive the tournament." Sarah caught a handhold on the wall to stop her rotation. "What's the latest intel?" James pulled up a holographic display showing various alien warriors. 32 competitors from 27 species. Most are using energy weapons that cost more than everything Earth sent to the Federation combined. He pointed to a particularly intimidating figure. "That's Zaxel, the Kraxthor commander who laughed at your bow. He's favored to reach the finals." "Good," Sarah said, retrieving her arrows. "I hope he does. It'll make beating him even sweeter." Dr. Rodriguez floated over with a tablet showing test results. "Your last practice session was perfect, but remember, we couldn't copy the advanced alien tech without breaking tournament rules. Your bow and arrows are still basically mechanical. We just made them space-worthy." Sarah ran her fingers along her bow's smooth surface. The carbon fiber felt alive under her touch. "That's our advantage. They're all depending on computers and energy cells. I'm depending on physics and muscle memory." "The tournament starts tomorrow," James said seriously. "The whole galaxy will be watching. No human has ever made it past the first round." He paused. "No pressure." Sarah laughed, performing a slow backflip in the zero gravity. "You know what my mother used to say? The bow is older than civilization, but still kills as well as any new weapon. These aliens forgot something important while they were building their fancy guns." "What's that?" Dr. Rodriguez asked. "The simplest solutions are often the best ones." Sarah knocked an arrow and released it without seeming to aim. It flew across the room and split a previous arrow already in the target center. "And humans, we're really good at simple solutions." James shook his head in amazement. "The aliens think you're a joke. They've been posting memes about Earth's prehistoric warrior all over the galactic net." Sarah packed her bow away carefully, checking each piece of equipment one final time. "Let them laugh. Tomorrow, we'll show them why humanity never stopped practicing with these primitive weapons. Sometimes, the old ways are the best ways." As she prepared for bed that night, Sarah watched recordings of previous tournament matches. The alien warriors were impressive with their plasma rifles and quantum blasters. But they all had one thing in common. They relied completely on their technology. Tomorrow, they would learn that a human with a bow could be just as deadly as any energy weapon in the galaxy. And Sarah Chen planned to teach them that lesson arrow by arrow. The massive arena of New Saturn Station buzzed with excitement as thousands of alien spectators filled the stands. Holographic displays showed close-ups of the various warriors preparing for the preliminary rounds. Sarah Chen sat quietly in Earth's preparation chamber, watching the first matches on a large screen. "Look at how they all fight the same way," she said to Captain Wong, who stood nearby checking the tournament rules one last time. On the screen, a tall blue alien fired a sleek energy rifle at moving targets. They point, their computers aim, and they shoot. The crowd cheered as another competitor, a floating gas-based life form, scored perfect hits with its plasma cannon. The alien warriors were impressive, their advanced weapons creating beautiful light shows as they destroyed targets. Your match is in 20 minutes, James reminded her. You're in Arena 3 against a Zentarian warrior. They're calling you the human novelty act in the alien news. Sarah smiled as she carefully strung her bow. Did you notice something about all these matches so far? They're all scoring nearly perfect points. No. Sarah stood up, testing her bowstring. They're all fighting in perfect conditions. Watch what happens when things get messy. As if on cue, the next match showed a warrior's weapon malfunctioning after getting wet in the arena's rain simulation. The crowd gasped as the expensive energy rifle sparked and died. Match 12. Arena 3. A computerized voice announced. Sarah Chen of Earth versus Krell, the mighty of Centauri Prime. Sarah walked confidently into the bright lights of the arena. The crowd's amused chatter was clearly audible. Her opponent, Krell, stood nearly 9 feet tall, his silver battle suit gleaming. His weapon looked like a small cannon attached to his arm. I feel almost bad about this. Krell's translator boomed. Perhaps you should forfeit now, tiny human. I would hate to embarrass your species. The arena computer announced the rules. Preliminary round. First to score 15 hits on moving targets advances. Environmental conditions will vary. Begin in 3, 2, 1. Immediately, holographic targets appeared throughout the arena, moving at different speeds. Krell's weapon hummed to life, his targeting computer projecting calculations in front of his eyes. Sarah simply drew her first arrow. The crowd laughed as she took aim without any visible targeting system. But their laughter died when her first arrow struck dead center on the fastest-moving target. Impossible, Krell muttered, firing his own weapon. The energy blast hit perfectly, guided by his computer. Then the environmental controls kicked in. Rain began to fall in one section of the arena. Wind gusts blew randomly. The gravity shifted unpredictably. Krell's next shots began to miss. His targeting computer struggled to adjust to the changing conditions. But Sarah's arrows continued to find their marks, her years of practice letting her feel the wind and adjust naturally. Target count. Krell, 8 hits. Sarah Chen, 12 hits, the computer announced. The crowd grew quiet, watching in amazement as the human woman moved gracefully through the changing environments. She didn't fight against the conditions. She used them, letting the wind help carry her arrows, adjusting her aim for gravity shifts as naturally as breathing. Final scores. Krell, 11 hits. Sarah Chen, 15 hits. Winner, Sarah Chen of Earth. The silence in the arena was deafening. Then, surprisingly, a few aliens began to clap. Others joined in, the sound building as Sarah bowed respectfully to her defeated opponent. How? Krell asked, his translator crackling with confusion. You used no targeting computer, no energy source. Sarah collected her arrows calmly. That's the point. Sometimes the best technology is no technology at all. She patted her bow. This works because I work, not because a computer tells it how to work. As she walked back to the preparation chamber, Sarah heard the tournament announcer's stunned voice. For the first time in Galactic tournament history, a human competitor has advanced past the preliminary round. The question now is, was this luck, or does Earth's ancient weapon hold secrets we've forgotten? Sarah smiled. They would find out soon enough in the quarterfinals. 3 days after her surprising victory, Sarah Chen faced her quarterfinal match. The arena was even more packed than before, with many aliens now carrying signs showing cartoon bows and arrows. Her unexpected win had made her the tournament's most talked-about competitor. Your next opponent is Vice Commander Xar of the Zentarian Fleet, Captain Wong said, showing Sarah a hologram of a tall, muscular alien. He watched your last match very carefully. He won't underestimate you like the others did. Sarah nodded, checking her arrows one by one. Good. I'm tired of being underestimated. Did you notice how the arena is set up today? James looked at the screens showing Arena 1. They've added more gravity control panels. The whole floor is covered with them. Exactly. Sarah smiled. They think changing gravity will make it harder for me. They still don't understand what makes archery different from their weapons. The tournament computer's voice echoed through the station. Quarterfinal match. Sarah Chen of Earth versus Vice Commander Ktar of Zentari. Special rules. Rotating gravity zones. First to score 5 direct hits on opponent's armor advances to semifinals. The crowd roared as Sarah entered the arena. Across from her, Vice Commander Ktar stood proud in his battle armor, holding an advanced plasma rifle. His helmet analyzed Sarah's every movement. Human. Ktar's voice was respectful. Unlike previous opponents, your victory in the preliminaries was impressive. But now you face live combat scenarios. Our weapons were designed for this. Yours was designed for hunting animals. Sarah drew an arrow, testing the air. You'd be surprised what humans use to hunt with these. Match begins in 3, 2, 1. Immediately, the arena's gravity began changing. Different sections of the floor glowed with different colors, each representing a different gravitational pull. Sarah felt herself become lighter, then heavier as she moved. Tsar fired quickly, his plasma bolts blazing through the air. But the changing gravity affected their path, making them curve unpredictably. His targeting computer struggled to calculate the constantly shifting forces. Sarah, however, didn't fight the gravity changes. She moved with them, using the varying pulls to her advantage. When she was lighter, she jumped higher for better angles. When gravity was stronger, she used the extra pull to add power to her shots. First hit. Sarah Chen. The computer announced as one of her arrows struck Tsar's shoulder armor. The alien commander adjusted his strategy, trying to predict where gravity would be weakest. But Sarah was already there, sending arrows through the low-gravity zones, where they moved faster and hit harder. Third hit. Sarah Chen. Fourth hit. Vice Commander Ktar. The crowd was silent now, watching in amazement as the human woman seemed to dance through the changing gravity fields. Her arrows followed curved paths, using the gravity shifts like invisible guides to reach their target. This is impossible, Ktar said after Sarah's fourth hit. Your weapon has no computer guidance. How are you calculating these shots? Sarah launched herself off a high-gravity panel, floating briefly through a zero-gravity zone. I'm not calculating anything. I'm feeling it. The gravity, the movement, the flow of the arena, it's all just part of the shot. Her final arrow caught Ktar perfectly in the center of his chest armor. Fifth hit. Sarah Chen. Match winner. Sarah Chen of Earth. Sarah Chen advances to semifinals. The arena erupted in cheers. Even the alien warriors in the preparation areas were watching with new respect. They had finally begun to understand. Sarah wasn't winning despite using a primitive weapon. She was winning because of it. Remarkable, Tsar said, approaching Sarah after the match. We thought our technology made us better warriors. But you've shown us that true mastery comes from understanding the basic forces of nature. Sarah offered him one of her arrows as a sign of respect. The best technology isn't always the newest. Sometimes it's the one that's been tested by time. As she left the arena, Sarah heard the aliens in the crowd discussing archery with newfound interest. The semifinals would be even harder, but now she had something better than their respect. She had their attention. The semifinals arena looked different from all previous venues. Dark metal walls stretched high into the artificial sky, and strange equipment hummed along its edges. Sarah Chen stood at her entrance gate, watching the Thor champion, Commander Zaxel, prepare his weapons. Something feels wrong, Captain Wong whispered, standing beside her. Zaxel specifically requested this arena for your match. Be careful. Sarah nodded, testing her bowstring. He's the one who laughed at us during the welcoming ceremony. Now he's not laughing anymore. The tournament computer began its announcement. Semi-final match. Sarah Chen of Earth versus Commander Zaxel of Thor. Special conditions. Variable lighting and atmospheric changes. First warrior to disable opponent's armor wins. Zaxel's metallic voice echoed across the arena. No more simple target practice, human. Let's see how your stick and string work in real combat conditions." The match began, and immediately the arena's lights started shifting. Shadows moved like liquid across the floor, making it hard to see. Zaxol's armor glowed faintly, his targeting systems creating a web of laser guides through the darkness. Sarah moved silently, her feet remembering her training in the dark. She could hear Zaxol's armor humming as he moved, could feel the slight breeze from his movements. Suddenly, all the lights went out completely. Warning. Unexpected power fluctuation. The computer announced. Backup systems engaging in 10 seconds. Sarah heard Zaxol curse as his weapon made clicking sounds. "What's happening? My targeting system is offline." But Sarah was already moving. In the complete darkness, she felt perfectly at home. This was exactly like her training sessions, where she had practiced for hours without light, learning to shoot by sound and feel alone. "Where are you?" Zaxol demanded, his armor systems trying desperately to restart. "This is impossible. No one can fight in total darkness." An arrow whistled through the darkness, striking his armor with perfect accuracy. Warning lights flashed on his suit. "How?" he shouted. "You have no targeting system, no light amplification, no infrared sensors." Sarah's voice came from somewhere in the darkness. "I don't need them. Humans hunted in the dark long before we had technology to help us see." Another arrow found its mark. Zaxol fired blindly, his energy bolts illuminating the arena for split seconds, but hitting nothing. Backup power failing to engage, the computer announced. Match will continue under current conditions. The crowd murmured in amazement as they watched the arena's dark interior on their screens using special cameras. The human woman moved like a shadow, while the mighty Kraxthor warrior stumbled around, his advanced weapons useless without power. "This is why we keep practicing the old ways," Sarah said, her voice echoing. "Because technology can fail, but skill never does." A third arrow struck Zaxol's armor, hitting a crucial joint. His suit powered down completely, leaving him standing frozen in place. "Match winner, Sarah Chen of Earth," the computer announced as the lights slowly came back on. The crowd was completely silent. They had just watched one of the most advanced warriors in the galaxy defeated by someone using what they had called a primitive weapon. The revelation was stunning. Zaxol's armor slowly regained power, and he turned to face Sarah. "We were wrong," he said, his voice humbled. "We thought advancing meant leaving the old ways behind. But you've shown us that true advancement means building on our foundations, not abandoning them." Sarah helped him stand, offering him one of her arrows as a gesture of respect. Every piece of technology can fail, but knowledge, skill, and understanding, these things never lose power. As she left the arena, Sarah could hear the alien spectators discussing what they had seen. They weren't laughing anymore at Earth's primitive weapons. Instead, they were beginning to understand a crucial truth. Sometimes the oldest solutions were the most reliable ones. The finals would be tomorrow, but Sarah had already achieved something more important than victory. She had made the galaxy's most advanced warriors rethink what it meant to be truly advanced. The final day of the Galactic Combat Tournament arrived with unprecedented excitement. Every screen across the station showed highlights from Sarah Chen's previous matches. The arena was packed with spectators from 100 different worlds, many now carrying traditional weapons from their own cultures. "Your opponent is Grand Champion Dexra," Captain Wong said, showing Sarah the stats. "He's won the last 3 tournaments. His quantum pulse rifle can fire in 5 dimensions at once." Sarah calmly checked her bow one last time. "Impressive. But can it fire when reality itself is changing?" "What do you mean?" "Look at the arena." Sarah pointed to the massive space where the final battle would take place. "Those aren't normal environment generators. They're reality distortion fields." The tournament computer's voice boomed. "Final match. Sarah Chen of Earth versus Grand Champion Dexra of the Nexus Worlds. Special conditions. Reality flux zones. Multiple terrain types. Dimensional shifts possible. Last warrior standing wins. Dexra entered first, his crystalline armor catching the light. He stood 8 feet tall, his weapon looking more like a piece of art than a tool of war. The crowd cheered for their champion. Sarah walked in next, carrying only her bow and a quiver of specially prepared arrows. The crowd's cheers were just as loud. She was no longer the novelty act, but a warrior who had earned their respect. "You've impressed many with your primitive weapon," Dexra said, his voice musical and strange. "But you face technology beyond your understanding now." Sarah knocked an arrow. "Maybe, but physics stays the same, even when reality doesn't." The match began. Immediately, the arena began to change. One section turned into a swamp, another into a desert. Gravity reversed in some spots while time moved slower in others. The air itself seemed to bend and twist. Dexra fired his weapon. The quantum pulses split into multiple shots, each traveling through a different dimension. But the changing reality affected them in strange ways. Some shots vanished entirely, others curved back toward him. Sarah, however, adapted quickly. She had trained for straight shots, curved shots, and everything in between. When reality twisted, she simply adjusted her aim. When gravity reversed, she used it to curve her arrows in impossible ways. "Impossible!" Dexra shouted as an arrow struck his armor. "Your weapon operates on basic physics. These reality distortions should make it useless." "That's where you're wrong," Sarah said, ducking under a quantum pulse. "Basic physics is the only thing that stays constant when reality changes. Your complex weapon is fighting against the chaos. My simple one works with it." The battle continued. Dexra's advanced targeting systems struggled to calculate shots through the shifting dimensions, but Sarah's arrows, guided by instinct and understanding rather than computers, found their mark again and again. A particularly strong reality shift created a zone where past, present, and future merged. Dexra's weapon jammed, unable to process which dimension to fire in. Sarah simply closed her eyes, felt the flow of time and space, and released her arrow. The arrow traveled through all 3 time zones simultaneously, striking Dexra's armor in a way that bypassed all of his defenses. His systems overloaded and shut down. Match and tournament winner: Sarah Chen of Earth. The crowd erupted in the loudest cheer yet. Aliens of all species stood, celebrating not just Sarah's victory, but a new understanding of combat and technology. Dexra's armor reactivated, and he approached Sarah with genuine respect. "We thought we had moved beyond simple weapons," he said, "but you've shown us that the simplest solutions are often the most elegant." Sarah offered him her last arrow. "Every piece of technology builds on what came before. Forget the basics, and even the most advanced systems can fail." As she held up her bow in victory, Sarah saw numerous alien warriors examining their own ancient weapons with new interest. She hadn't just won a tournament. She had helped bridge the gap between the old and the new, between tradition and technology. The galaxy would never look at primitive weapons the same way again. 1 year after Sarah Chen's historic victory at the Galactic Combat Tournament, the Grand Training Hall on New Saturn Station looked very different. Where once there had been only high-tech weapon ranges, now traditional combat areas filled half the space. And at the center of it all was Earth's first gift to the galactic community: the Universal Combat Academy. Sarah walked through the training areas, watching aliens of all species practicing with bows, spears, and other traditional weapons from their homeworlds. Some of these weapons hadn't been used in thousands of years before her tournament victory changed everything. "Teacher Chen," a young Kraxthor warrior called out, holding a bow almost as tall as himself. "I finally managed to hit the target in zero gravity." Sarah smiled, remembering how just a year ago, the Kraxthor had laughed at her primitive weapon. Now their warriors were some of her most dedicated students. "Well done, Zexkar," she said, adjusting his stance slightly. "Remember, feel the shot. Don't think about it too much." Commander Zaxel, her former semi-final opponent, approached with a group of military officials from different worlds. "The Federation Council wants an update on our progress," he said. "They're particularly interested in how traditional combat training has improved our warriors' performance." Sarah gestured to the training floor. "Show them," she said. Zaxel pressed a button, and suddenly all power in the training hall went out. But instead of chaos, the training continued smoothly. Warriors switched from energy weapons to traditional ones without missing a beat, their movements sure even in the darkness. "Impressive," one of the officials said as the lights came back on. "A year ago, a power failure would have left our forces helpless." "That's just the beginning," Sarah said, leading them to a special demonstration area. "Watch this." A group of students faced combat drones. The machines created random environmental hazards, gravity shifts, electromagnetic pulses, reality distortions. The warriors adapted instantly, switching between advanced weapons and traditional ones as needed. "This is the future of combat," Sarah explained. "Not choosing between old and new, but mastering both. Every weapon, no matter how ancient or advanced, has its perfect moment." Later that day, Sarah found Captain Wong in her office, looking at statistics on a holographic display. "The numbers are amazing," he said. "Warriors who've completed your program show 300% improvement in combat effectiveness. They're more adaptable, more resilient, and more creative in crisis situations." Sarah picked up her old competition bow from its display case. "Because they're not just learning to use weapons anymore. They're learning to understand them." The door chimed, and a delegation of alien leaders entered. Their formal robes marked them as members of the Galactic High Council. "Master Chen," the lead counselor said, "we've come with a request. Every major military force in the galaxy now has a traditional weapons program, but they're all copying Earth's methods. We would like to make your academy the official training center for the entire Galactic Federation." Sarah looked around her office at the weapons displayed on the walls. Her tournament bow, Zaxel's deactivated plasma rifle, Dexra's quantum pulse rifle, and dozens of traditional weapons gifted by grateful students. "On one condition," she said, "we don't just teach combat here. We teach understanding. Every student must learn the history and culture behind each weapon they master." The counselors agreed immediately. As they left to prepare the official documents, Sarah stood at her window, watching the stars. A year ago, the galaxy had mocked Earth's primitive ways. Now, those same methods were helping to forge a stronger, more resilient galactic civilization. "Not bad for a primitive string shooter," Captain Wong said, smiling. Sarah laughed, remembering those early days of mockery and doubt. "Sometimes," she said, picking up a training bow to help her next class, "the oldest wisdom is the most important to remember." In the training hall below, hundreds of warriors from across the galaxy prepared for their lessons, each one carrying both advanced weapons and traditional arms. Earth's primitive legacy had become the galaxy's new future. And it all started because they mocked an archer.